Yeah, sorry to all those, the OCD people who like things neatly arranged. Going from whatever I had to PowerPoint did this. It's not me. It's not that I don't notice, but anyway. All right. Father, I just pray that as we talk about you and inheritance, blessings, curses, all these things, that our hearts would just be open right now as we seek your face. Be in this place, I pray. And I pray that you will help me as I'm feeling a bit tired, but that you bring to memory all that I wish to bring and everything for your glory. Amen. All right, we're going through the blessings. I thought I'd in particular focus on Genesis chapter 49, a lovely passage that many of you should know. And I'll leave Genesis 48. That's also a really interesting, unique ceremony that precedes this. But really, when we get to Genesis 49, we have Jacob and his 12 boys. And I've recently come back down from KZN, from Natal, and I had a family reunion. And my oldest brother there, my middle brother there, and, Joseph has a lot to think of, the youngest in many ways, and these Torah portions speak a lot. I hope to all of you and to be mindful of family and parents and siblings, and it's good to desire the blessing, but we also know that selfishness and other things deeply entangle and deeply frustrate the plan of God, where often He really has a beautiful inheritance for all of us, if we would just submit and embrace the yoke. In our Father's house, there are many dwellings, many dwelling places, many crowns and riches for all of us, if we would just respect Him and choose the blessing. And it's interesting when reading through the blessings as they come forward from Genesis chapter 49. And what's interesting about them, I don't want to dwell on this too much. He says this will happen in the latter days. The confidence of Jacob is amazing, that he knows through the inspiration of the Spirit what he says will come to be. He is speaking as Elohim, in a sense. And we know with our God, His word never returns void. And it's interesting when for those who don't know, my major when I studied theology was Old Testament studies. Always fascinated with the tribes, always preferred that side of the book. Strangely, I suppose, perhaps our Elohim was calling me from a young age. But going through these sons and how it develops through Israel, we really do see that early blessings and curses and pronouncements, you see their fruition. They come to bear fruit. A stark reminder that do not frustrate your parents. Okay? And where you have, also know that they have an enduring love, and a repentant heart will often go a long way. But to be mindful of that tension that really exists. And so we see this in the story of Jacob. Now it's 4 sons. We've got wives in the mix. It's a complicated family, and lots has gone on. Judah and Tamar, various stories that come through. Who knows what we don't know about? We also know there's a daughter in the background who also had a traumatic experience. So this is real family life. Here. And so you'll see he doesn't necessarily do it in the order of birth. We'll get to how his order does, the way he does it, but there's a general desire. You can see in the kind of oldest to youngest coming through, honoring them. And we see that, so Reuben we see as the firstborn, the first of, who's the mother? Leah, yeah, well done. And then and she was very fruitful. Simeon, Levi, Judah. Then what happened with Rachel? She kind of went in the flesh a bit. Handmaiden. We have Dan, Naphtali from Bilhah. We have Gad and Asher from Zilpah. And we have then Leah also has another 2 children, Issachar and Zebulun. Sometimes Issachar is placed before Zebulun, sometimes after. Don't always read too much in these things. You might say, okay, well, Zebulun obviously put him in front of Issachar. Well, we see that doesn't always work out because you remember the mountains of blessing and curse. There's also a symbolic thing there. We see certain tribes on the mount of cursing and blessing. We see we see Issachar goes onto the mount of blessing, is symbolic there. But so we have this very interesting family, and I will be honest, a massive shift in my life was realizing, wow, the things that I looked at, and you read things and you just think, way Old Testament, done away with. This is just a man in Genesis saying stuff, realizing there is one who watches over and orchestrates all of history, all of time, to accomplish the purposes that must be done. Incredible. Change in my life. And as I often say to people, sometimes you need to realize the dreams of Joseph, okay, and I would incorporate blessings, just words spoken sometimes, have more significance than a blood-stained cloak. Sometimes there's an appearance of reality, but I've learnt with time, the words of Elohim are greater than what you think is reality. Really. And we'll see some of these things in the progression of Israel with time. So we see the importance of, as I said, you honor your parents. That's the greatest commandment, so that it may go well with you in the land. Okay? Do not frustrate them. We saw that also with Esau. We saw who he married, a frustration to the parents. But also we do get a sense of firstborns as well, that you do belong in an order, in a family. And we see an emphasis. You remember the tabernacle. With time, there's a placement of tribes around them. And you see there's a dominant one in each. Dominant in a certain way. We have, as you all said, Reuben, the first of his strength on the south side. We have Dan above of the handmaidens. This was the firstborn through them. And then Ephraim represents Joseph. Gets a bit technical there. We could put Ephraim and Manasseh in a way. But we see a dominance there. Joseph, again, we may not think of as a firstborn, or quite low down the order, but yes, of Rachel. Okay, so maybe that might be where that emphasis comes from. And then Judah's interesting because Judah, what line of the pecking order was he? Anyone remember? Okay, he actually comes in at number 4. All right. So, so Judah comes in strong. And even though he's the one that sells Joseph, he comes up with the idea. Business is business. We can make some money out of this. And rather than our hands put this one to death, let's rather, our hands are clean. Well, not really. The guilt will eat you up for the rest of your life. But anyway, this is the idea. And, but, this is the hope. Just so you know, with all our failures in life, there often is a path of redemption. And he is very dominant amongst his brothers. We see Reuben, Simeon, and Levi, I don't know if you've noticed, kind of falling to the background. We have the extra story about Tamar. Judah starts coming forward as more prominent. And at the end of his life, he was the one who was prepared for Jacob's sake he said, Dad, if they take Joseph, Benjamin, if they want Benjamin, Dad, I will go in his place. I promise I will sacrifice for him. So commendable comes forward. We see a redemption. We see a beautiful story, path of redemption there. And it's built in with a few things. Let me go back. Okay, so we have these four coming through. I don't know if you can see them a little bit highlighted. Reuben, Judah, Dan, Joseph coming through. And of them, and you see this with the tabernacle, you see how they placed, even within the accentuation of four in a way, what we have is definitely a greater dominance that starts emerging where Judah and Joseph, Ephraim have an element of prominence even above that in the tribes. To go from east to west, this is how the priests would enter, and it's the more significant of the roots, as it were. So just be aware of that. I don't know if I get into that yet, but and with that lifting up of Judah and Joseph, as it were, we can't question why this bypassing of the other children. Now, some of you may know why from reading what Jacob said over them. Why Reuben, Simeon, and Levi were skipped in a sense, and it went to Judah. Okay, I'm not going there yet, but just to emphasize again the Judah, Joseph, the east, west, the accentuation in Israel, and we'll deal with this a bit later. It's connected to the idea of a double portion. Remember with Pharaoh, he says, Israel is my firstborn. What does that mean? That means of all the nations, this nation will have to bear a double portion. And so that's why there is this emphasis in there. We'll get to why. And actually, we all have a double portion in a way, and to be mindful of this. And we see it was already baked in a bit. So I don't know if you've noticed that with the verses of the blessings. 5 verses for Judah, 5 verses for Joseph. With the others, it's generally 1 verse. Okay? So there is already this accentuating of Judah, Joseph as well. Judah, it's a lot more about war. It is a bit more about the scepter, rulership, the law, as it were, and maintaining the family in a sense. But the children will bow down before you. You don't get this with the other ones. Very much baked in with Judah. But what we see is, remember before with Joseph, very similar. Also has this unique side as well with the bowing down, this accentuation that happens there. And also, 5 verses. And so it's beginning to happen. We begin to see. It's beautiful. The scriptures are just amazing how you see little hints at where things are going. And we really do believe in progressive revelation, that as time progresses, you don't always see it. As Paul said, we look through a glass dimly. I know I stand up here perhaps looking like I really see it all. There are so many things. I'm like, have no idea. I can tell you. And you read the things, you're like, and that's also a wonderful thing. When it makes no sense, it means it's not that he doesn't make sense. We just don't understand. But we're seeing this through time, the importance here of these two coming to the fore. But let's look at how we get to Judah, especially because we do see God's intention really is that, the firstborn. We see this in Deuteronomy. It says, even if it's from the wife you don't love, honor the firstborn. It was a very strong, it's a strong mandate. Don't have favoritism, let that get in the way. There's a righteousness in the firstborn blessing. There is another thing as well, though, coupled with that, and that is the idea of disinheritance. Again, that's why you walk in fear with your parents, why you don't want to frustrate them. It's not just a guarantee. Life and death is in the power of the tongue. You want to fear, have a healthy fear and respect for for your parents. And here we have an interesting description of, he gives praise to Reuben in that the firstborn of my strength. I'll often comment on Samuel like that. It's the firstborn of my strength. And preeminent in dignity, preeminent in power. But here we see one thing, that when you want to go to a family level, we see a character flaw that we all should meditate on. It says, unstable as water. Going to and fro, no consistency. One thing you do once in leadership is sense of stability. You can't change your mind every 5 minutes. You have to maintain a sense of consistency. Be stable. And we know that he lacked in that side, and we see this issue that arises with Reuben, with the handmaiden Bilhah. And this is, it's more than Jacob. It is Jacob. Jacob really admonishing here. But there's a consequence as well, because Bilhah has children. And in those children's eye, Reuben will always represent something. So there's consequence beyond a simple matter. And so this is also quite interesting. Got here a picture of how the tribes settle, and you see Reuben on the Jordan side, over the Jordan in red towards the bottom. It's quite interesting that Dan and Naphtali are not bordering on the borders of Reuben. There's an element of separation. Okay? For obvious reasons. And then I was driving here this morning, and I was thinking again, going back to the tabernacle and how they were placed around, because I knew that, you got Rachel's children, you got Judah, the literal seed of Leah, and then with Reuben and them, and I suddenly realized, I bet Reuben has Gad with him and does not have Dan and Naphtali. And it is like that. So we can see, you got to dig a bit to realize some of the family dynamics, and your instability has a cost. It has an effect, and so there's the separation, other sides of the camp, as it were. Okay, Simeon and Levi. So the first thing we do see, be mindful of that, is instability. We saw that with Esau as well, this idea of we have to try and have the fruits of the Spirit, be slow to anger, kind, gentle, not easy, clothe yourself, pray for, when the blood is boiling and you're ready to hamstring a few oxen, because that's what these two did, and completely devour a town. Just take a break, take a breather. I think I said the last time I was here, the French army, they've got this rule where you can't lodge a complaint for at least 2 weeks. And they found like half you blow off some steam. We see with Simeon, Levi, yes, it was their literal sister, not a half sister. Dinah is their sister, full sister, close to home. Took matters into their own hands, as it were. And we get Jacob being quite severe here. Weapons of violence. Describes them as violent. Verse 6, that's quite, let my soul come not into their counsel. So they really irritated Dad on this one. And they should have at least counseled him. Maybe they could have made their dad rethink a few things. But you go through the proper channels, as it were, and we just see this description over them. Cursed be their anger, it's fierce, their wrath. I should have highlighted the last part, because this is what's very interesting. It's hard to live a life where you're burning bridges with everyone, to have people around you in your life. Do you know what I mean? If you just go to war every time you're offended, you're going to find quite a lonely existence, and even your family, I don't know what it's like at family gatherings, but you hear that not all families are the same. Some it's like, wow. It's just everyone, a lot of violence, a lot of words said, a lot of hard to keep that together. Okay? And he says, I will divide them in Jacob. These are the words. I will divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. And this actually literally happens with the tribes. All right? Now, Simeon gets an inheritance. Where Simeon is down inside Judah, the stripy black and white portion there. It's very interesting. This curse is given on a man at that stage, but these things, as I say, they have an outworking. Because when the division of the kingdom happened and Judah was to get, we have that description there, one tribe for my son David, that's talking about Judah. Remember, the kings were of Judah. And for Jerusalem's sake, that's Benjamin. Okay, I don't know if you know that. Jerusalem's actually in Benjaminite territory, often needed Judah to help them liberate it, but we don't get mention of Simeon. In fact, he kind of drifts off the map. Literally, it's like after a while, you're just not reading about Shimon. Okay, again, I think harsh words from a dad. You live by the sword, you die by the sword, okay? Now, I don't think they've died out, okay, because the scriptures say you're scattered in Israel, so it's more that bloodline will be dispersed within other tribes that have managed to maintain identities, however we understand that. But we see how real life and death, power of the tongue, be mindful of these things. The other one, Levi, okay, you can't see a tribe of Levi there, you can't see a territory there, okay, scattered as well through towns. Okay, but we know Judah there's always a path of redemption sometimes, okay, because I think with Dinah, I think there was perhaps a good heart as well that wanted some justice, was not trying to really frustrate his dad. Anyway, we know a time came where, I put that scripture there. Moses comes down the mountain. Okay. Who is for Yehovah? Who's on his side? Golden calf incident. Okay. The Levites now stand up. I'm sure while Moses was gone, they all wanted to already just let's put an end to this. But they waited. They followed the right way. They proved themselves. And so we see, although scattered, raised up as well. Just a great lesson of how we can be redeemed, how we can. There's another opportunity, and our Father works it to His glory. All right. Can't remember what I was showing here. Not sure. Okay, and then let's go to Kings, and we're going to just go back to the double portion. This is what I want to emphasize as for all of us, because usually we look at, they're the favorite ones, and not to realize all of us actually have a double portion. I'll explain it to you. We're all blessed. We're all blessed to be a blessing. We are all have something. We have more than just our own needs, and there's a way in which we can bless others and to understand how we're uniquely blessed to bless others. But to see this on a national level, we need to understand that to understand Israel, Messiah's people, this is how it moves forward. There came a time where the northern kingdom was rebelling, and Solomon was no fool. I think he saw it on the cards, and he gave Rehoboam full control of the army. He could crush this rebellion. Rehoboam could have put an end to this idea, but for the prophet coming, meeting him on the road and just saying to him, listen, what is happening here is of Elohim. Okay. that Israel needs to become a double portion. If Israel is going to bless the nations, it cannot just preserve itself. A double portion is about, through this, we can accomplish greater things. And so we see this happening here. We know this was the word of the Lord. And so what was started off as these blessings, back there with Jacob, we see this, we see the two wives. There's multiple ways in which we see this, but we see Israel was going to have this double portion and to understand the reason for it, as Messiah has chosen to use Israel through time. So yes, so you realize that these two do dominate in the end, and whatever tribes end up being under them, they gain the personality of the dominant one. That's just what happens with time. But also what I love here is the description of these two sticks, in that there's two ways in which Messiah is working in the world, and we can trace this through. So I put their double portion, Messiah's portion, and the one you really see is that, because what are the two portions for? When you get the double portion, what was it for? Well, the one portion is you have to maintain yourself, okay? You have to preserve your own family. You have to look after your own life. You have to work the budget and deal with that. The extra portion is sacrificial, to bless others with time. And what we definitely see is with Judah, if we connect that with the Jewish people, we definitely see this connection of maintaining the home fire, as it were, keeping the identity, keeping the preservation, conserving what it means to be Israel. A massive problem we have today, because much of the church will read Malachi 4, and when it says, "Remember the Torah of my servant Moshe, which I gave to all Israel. See, I am coming," and this is in the context of the second coming, Messiah coming, and the identity is just not really kept very well. I don't know how else to say it. We're going to spiritualize Israel. Well, it's allegorical. Torah of Moses. Well, there's the law of God, and there's the law of Messiah, and and we just mess things up. But there's one nation, if I may say, that has been steadfast. They've had their own walk they've had to do, and they've kept the identity of Israel. Israel, Jacob, Israel. Okay, when we're talking Sabbath, we don't have to get clever. Okay, and they've kept that identity, and I think we all should honor a brother in that, and a role that they've had to fulfill in that through time. And even when it says there, these blessings were for the last days, for the end days, it speaks of Messiah to Judah. Okay, in that context where it says, "From you, Judah, will come Shiloh in the end days, and unto him shall be the gathering of the peoples." So Messiah is coming back, okay, not as a Catholic, okay? We may think he's going to be Dutch Reformed or in my image, and we try and mark him into our image. Now, I'm not saying Judah's perfect. We know he took issue with them, but generally he's coming back as a kind of Jacob Israel. Original kind of Jacob. When you think of Jacob Israel, Tanakh Israel, that's his identity. And it's due to the faithfulness of Judah. And we see this as well. Joseph, he's got a different role. Okay, he's off as a young man. Okay, but he doesn't really look much like Jacob at the end of his life. His brothers can't even recognize him. His name's Zaphnath Paaneah. He's married the priest of Heliopolis' daughter. Who knows what he's getting into, okay? Joseph at some point needs just some help. But Judah is back home in Jacob's household with the identity, maintaining things. We see this pattern again and again. It happens on a national level. We see these fulfillments. So that's just to be mindful of this. So the one portion you get in life is look after yourself. You need to do that. I'm all for, what do we say in the West? It's that individual ownership, what's the word? Anyway, that you need to look after yourself. Don't think of government. Don't think of mummy and daddy. One lot, preserve yourself. Don't look to others. Own your life. Manage your life. It's important. And then there's another side we see as well. And this is not for you. This is where we come to the ideas in our lives of sacrificial giving. Portions where it's like, so for those who tithe, I don't know what it feels like. You definitely get some blessings here that definitely come over to you. But sometimes, you click the button and it goes off, and it's like an offering, ascending offering going up, and there it goes, Sacrificial. Don't let your left hand know where your right hand is going. Don't start telling the leadership, listen, I'm going to give you this amount, but I really think you need to do this, or I'm not coming here, Be where you're called and give sacrificially. There's always that side of us that have that. There's something we can give sacrificially. And so there's this two sides in all of us. And we definitely see this as well with Joseph. I'm not going to get into some of the depth that is around that, but just to see, even within this family and within Messiah and how he's orchestrated things to redeem the nations, to be a blessing to the nations. There's one side sacrificially offered. There's another one that maintains the identity, that keeps things going. And it outworks in its unique ways. So there'll be that side to each of us that I think we should also understand. Okay, as I'm saying, we all have a double portion. It's also interesting, as I've studied the tribes, you realize, wow, we generally think, hey, Joseph got the double portion, or, we kind of look through different eyes, and those guys have it lucky, and there's a lot of actual extra portions when you actually analyze it. It's like everyone gets something. With Judah, okay, yes, they've got the royal family. Okay, Jerusalem, city of David, right? But they have another portion, don't they? Bethlehem. Okay, so one family has this kind of double allotment, okay? Now it comes with responsibilities. You've got to lead the armies into battle. It's always a two-edged sword and all these things. Benjamin, okay, son of my right hand. You don't see it so dominant, but in Israel, Benjamin's got a wonderful additional portion. I don't know if you know, because with Jerusalem, what are the tribes to do? They are to bring up, and it's basically a stimulus tax. It's a wonderful idea. Our Father has good ideas. I don't know why we abandon all these things, but this one is you go and take this and you blow it in Jerusalem. You go and have a good time. You're not spending on jewelry to take back to your home because you want to preserve the wealth, because we're all evil. We're all thinking like that. Maybe I can buy something and take it. No, you spend it. You go up there, you feast, you have joy. And, Jerusalem would have this beautiful portion that would come through. Levites, we see with the priests. First fruits are going up there. Okay, much bounty heading up in that direction. So it's not just, because you do see like Manasseh and Ephraim, you think Joseph, sheesh, and that's also the kind of fertile part of the country. But there's lots of ways. If we can just look sometimes, see in different ways in which you're blessed, ways in which we have that little bit that we can give in some ways that others can't, and respect in that kind of give and take of life. So, I'm often reminded of that mother who came, I think, quite sheepishly to Yeshua, trying to secure blessings for her boys. Don't know if you remember that. She comes in and says, listen, can my sons, can they sit on your right hand and on your left hand? First come, first serve. Maybe we can, the kingdom's coming. This is the king. And he has this very interesting response. Woman, are they prepared? To sit at his right hand and his left hand. I think we don't always understand. We think it's just the exaltation. I think there's going to be a lot of sacrifice in those that fulfill those kind of roles. But we often don't look through those eyes. And we think of Messiah himself for him to be the firstborn over all creation. Yes, King of kings, Lord of lords, seated on the throne. But there's another portion, isn't there? Sacrificed, offered up. Take up your cross and follow me. If you want to join this, there's an element, yes, we are kings and priests, but do you also understand giving yourself in this relationship? I've even changed my mind a bit on, because of the sacrificial nature, when I read of Genesis 48 and Joseph getting unique blessings there, and we know the hands were swapped, and Ephraim is described as he will be greater than Manasseh. And it's interesting how I'm changing my mind and how I'm reading it. I don't think it's necessarily greater in how we necessarily always understand greater. I think it's a great fulfillment, a great task. But I think sometimes with some of these great callings, there's going to be sacrifice like you do not understand. And Manasseh, on another level, he'll maintain certain identity as the older brother and the sacrificial portion. So there's a lot going on here. Where when you look at these, my mind has changed so much with time, where it's just a bit more nuanced. I think of Levi as well. I've been blessed to be Levi means attached. You leave your nets, follow him. There's certain sacrifices a certain calling may have. We all have them in different ways. But even there, you sometimes, like even myself, I have to look at people like missionaries. And I'm like, I do not want to ever be a missionary. The sacrificial elements of various forms of giving that I think we'll be genuinely surprised who Messiah might, and usually the unsung heroes. We've got no idea. How did sub-Saharan Africa come to know of the God of Israel? Who are these names? We all know, Joel Osteen and these, you got these big shots behind the pulpit. I look great here, I'm singing and this and that. Who are these ones? Sacrificial giving, unsung, pretty much donkey work, but I really believe will be greatest in the kingdom. There's some who have really offered up a lot. And so it's interesting to when you say, I want to be greatest in the kingdom, it's like asking for that prophetic anointing, Careful. Have you seen what happened to the prophets? Very similar. And I think we all need to realize, we're called to maintain our allotment, to, yes, keep your family going, preserve your family, focus on your family, and do all of that. But there's a greater side as well, I hope you're all aware of as well, where you can, hopefully, you have that extra portion in your life, but willing, where you can bless others and be a blessing, wherever that may be. This morning, I was so aware of this, because I look, I arrive here and I'm all dressed and this, and I'm sitting on the bed going over my stuff. And who's greatest in my family? Interesting ideas I'm thinking now. And, we all, this is the whole thing. It's in different roles. We can appreciate each other. But I'm there, Samuel's trying to talk to me, and I'm like, not now. This is self-preservation. I need to do what I need to do. We're not talking, I've got a son who has at least 500 questions a day, but this was not a moment. I'm like, no. And in my mind, a family is so easy. If each child just gets themselves dressed and I get dressed, we'll be ready, But it doesn't work out like that. 5 minutes before you've got to leave, there's always one that says, where are my shoes? And Nikki, I don't know how it is, she's actually there. I don't know how she does. Even I was staying with Lemma last night. Lemma was like, Andrew, you have an amazing wife. And it's so true. But these kind of blessings, unseen, often it's unseen, it's to the back. We all looking Judah, Joseph, this and that. Do we see what's behind them sometimes? And also appreciate that in our own lives, that it will sometimes be those that are not elevated and given esteem in this life. Often they'll be raised up in glory. And we're called to really be a giving type people, to just have that patience, to go that extra mile, to display Messiah to this world. And I was mindful of that. And, behind all these boys, we actually see Jacob. The numbers are all mixed up, but not the wives. It's interesting. So, there's always this unseen element as well. Highly important. Highly important. Because you might, your ladies are like, gee, I'm just reading all these men, it's all these men. But no, what we see with an Israelite culture is that, yes, we talk in patriarchal language. We talk about history, not her story. We talk about the sons of Israel. I don't like these new versions that are the children of Israel, or the fathers, or the patriarchs, and they're trying to make the guardians. There's all this stuff. No, there's a very masculine presentation, and it's good. But always underneath, you see there is a respect and honor given, where perhaps you don't see it. And all sides just need to love each other in this. Another thing as well, yes, you got the mothers mentioned here, in their order, as it were, of esteem, through their children. Another element that you don't see, again, a lot of ladies are like, all these men here, all these boys or whatever. But behind every one of those names, I don't know if you know, there was a mother. Except for the last one, Benjamin. Jacob had a veto right, okay? Just so you know, there is a veto right. But typically, no, it was given to the ladies to name children. And, even Jacob's standing back, because sometimes it seems horrific how the two wives are playing each other off with their children. But they're giving their names. They've given names, but I think it's also intuitive of the unseen reality, because when you give a name, it's also about the character. And just, men need to appreciate this to really understand. Okay. My children, I see them for a few minutes a day. Okay. Their character and nature is by far being molded and shaped by Nikki. It'll change at some point in life. Usually boys will at some point gravitate. But it's indicative of the shaping and the forming and how blessed Israel was. We see where Esau messed up, to have good, godly women, to appreciate them and to understand and see them behind your seed, your fruit, and to know their place in this. I really think this comes through here as well, where we just see with the ladies as well, their nature, their essence. And there's not enough emphasis on that. I'm just going to tell you, the lies of the devil have shifted the focus. That used to be the greatest privilege. It used to be to raise the next generation. Okay? And things are shifting. They say, well, we live in a modern world. No, we need good, godly women to raise the next generation. God willing, if He blesses you with children. If not, to be those aunties, to be those that bring up these children and raise them in the Scriptures. I wouldn't be here without one lady in particular at Sunday school many years ago. Just remember, and she just put in some effort. Everything I do in my life, I realized she's got a place in that. And just to be aware of this as well, in the background of how all of us, we have this double portion. We have an extra part to play. Don't neglect your own. maintain that part, but also see how am I blessed to be a blessing to others? How can I also look out for others? And that, in a way, is a greater component of it. Amen. Father, I do thank you for your word, and even as we go to Israel, to Jacob, we can see how in the presence of blessings and curses and pronouncements, and how we often jostle and jockey for attention, and we need to really realize you are a good Father, and you will give us what is ours ultimately, and that you've blessed us all with a role and a function, a place. I thank you for the power of our words. I thank you that with our mouths we can build up, we can tear down. May we be slow with our anger. May we be steadfast, stable in having your fruits in our lives, that we would be slow to anger, loving, gentle, kind. We know that as everyone, even the nations of this world, are vying for territory and dominance, and we look and we see. But we know that you have said that the meek will inherit the earth. I pray that we would understand that as all of us, with parents, with siblings, wherever our place in the work, ministry, however this is, that we would seek blessing. We would value these things. We would value each other. Help us, I do pray, because we know that you have so much for us. And if we submit to your ways, we will be blessed. So I thank you for this time. I thank you for everyone here. And I do pray that we just have open hearts to receive what you have for us. Pray these things in Yeshua's name. Amen.